June Tapp.
When you're ready.
Okay. My submission's mainly about social licence.
Can you perhaps just move the microphone down and speak into it? That's great. Thank you.
Mainly about social licence. And I thought that the CSIRO report on the social licence to operate in the Beetaloo Basin and Northern Territory would produce the numbers of people for and against fracking in the Northern Territory, or a bit of a rough idea. The report only generalises on assumptions on how to approach social licence if the Labor government decides to go ahead with fracking. There is a significant number of people who oppose fracking and are asking for a complete ban. The only reason we are here today is because the Northern Territory Labor government was forced into a moratorium because of the demands of so many people in the Northern Territory to ban fracking. Moratoriums and or a complete ban were made by all major organisations in the Northern Territory, and thousands of individual people too who signed petitions of protest fracking. Amongst the many groups, the major groups were the Amateur Fishermen's Association, the Cattlemen's Association, town councils, farmers, horticulturalists, the tourist industry, various Aboriginal groups from regions all over the Territory, people from Alice Springs, Darwin, Maningrida, Nooka, Mataranka, Borroloola, Batchelor, and many others. Marches have been held all over the NT to protest fracking. We do not want a dirty fossil fuel industry in the Northern Territory. The inquiry panel has noted in one of its reports that it says, in 2014, a global survey of perceptions of corporate social responsibility in business found the oil and gas industry to be one of the least trusted sectors, and that's certainly true for the Northern Territory. Second only to the tobacco industry. Of 24 countries surveyed, Australia had the highest level of mistrust of the oil and gas industry, equal with France, which in 2011 became the first country to ban fracking. Correspondingly, a high proportion of Australians thought that the oil and gas industry needs more regulation. To some extent, this widespread mistrust is influenced by a growing global anti-fracking sentiment found to be prevalent in Australia and Canada and in the UK. So you've noted that there's this growing global anti-fracking sentiment. Why do you think this is? It's because people have seen what happens to communities, the land and the waters that have been fracked. Many countries have banned fracking. I have to keep this a bit short because I've only got a few minutes. The Chief Minister of the Northern Territory has said we have plenty of excess gas in the Northern Territory, and Nicole Manison, the NT Treasurer, has said that even if the moratorium were lifted tomorrow, it would be at least 10 years before the Territory felt any benefit. Why introduce a dirty fossil fuel industry in the Territory? Worldwide, fossil fuels are on their way out. Well, they should be. There are bans on fracking in Victoria and parts of New South Wales, a moratorium in the NT. In South Australia, the opposition Liberal Party has promised bans on fracking if elected, and the newly elected WA Labor government also has promised some bans in WA. My point being, of course, that the Northern Territory isn't the only jurisdiction which would like to see it banned. Ex-Senator Larissa Waters calls the oil and gas industry the great fossil fuel rot. At an inquiry into hydraulic fracturing held in Katherine, it seems that for the first time people are now waking up to the fact of the manipulation of the Australian taxpayers by billion-dollar multinational gas companies. Australia's gas production has never been higher. The lack of cheap domestic gas is due to gas companies' overinvestment in export facilities. Rather than take responsibility for their bad investments, the gas industry has forced up the gas price and then attempted to scapegoat rural communities with deep concerns about their environment, water and fracking. This inquiry, this is slightly different, this inquiry has become centred on the Beetaloo area. Fracking Beetaloo would be the foot in the door for the dirty fossil fuel industry to mine all over the territory. 80 to 90% of NT land is covered by exploration licences. The Northern Territory has a long history of mining legacy catastrophes left behind by big mining companies. We've got Glencore at MacArthur River, has a bond of 450 million, slightly less. People say the bond should be $1 billion. Mount Todd near Katherine has an estimated cost of 120 to 200 million to be cleaned up. All over the debt of billions across the territory for the NT taxpayer. There's no chance of this ever being rectified. It's just disgusting. What I'll say, one more page. A little bit about Origin, worth 33 billion and paying no corporation tax. I haven't got enough knowledge if anyone asks me any deep and probing questions, I wouldn't be able to answer them. Quickly, before I run out of time, the role of the NLC, I would like to really particularly bring this to the inquiry, in acting as a front for the big gas companies. Keith Rory from Borroloola said of the mining companies, he's an Aboriginal man, he said they give them money, they give them motor cars, they use us Aboriginal people to divide and rule. Another Aboriginal, these are people, and particularly that I have actually spoken to, another Aboriginal woman from the BRD area said to me that the Northern Land Council facilitates mining companies, spruikers. She was speaking of her opposition to fracking. She said, I don't want to be known as someone who sold out. I don't want my grandchildren to think I sold out. And one of the people from Borroloola said, they're like white ants. They use us to divide and rule. What is happening in the Northern Territory is what is happening in Queensland with the Adani coal fossil fuel mine. People in the bush are trying to fight off the multi-billion-dollar fossil fuel companies like Origin and Santos, like the people of Queensland are trying to fight off the multi-billion-dollar Adani mining company. Why would the Northern Territory government even begin to contemplate introducing a long-term 20-year, 40-year dirty fossil fuel industry into the Northern Territory when everyone acknowledges that renewables are the future? That's it. What's the point?
Thank you very much, Ms. Tapp. Now, I saw that you were reading from a document. Are you happy to provide a copy of that to to the task force, and we'll put that up as a submission? Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Dr. Jones.
Just perhaps in your opening remarks, you talked about one of the reports. I think you mentioned was it the CSRO report or the Coffey report, and you thought it would have actually given a pro-anti type of distribution on the record.
I didn't hear what you said.
In the first part of your presentation, you mentioned a report. I think it was the CSRO report. You specifically mentioned saying that you had expectations that would provide an assessment of the for and against distribution, but it didn't. Could you elaborate on that?
Sorry, missed the last bit again.
Could you elaborate on that? I gather you feel that this content was deficient in what your expectation was.
Yes. I just thought that it would have got a mention, like, oh, gee whiz, we've been 5 years marching and holding meetings and making little banners and sewing things and selling bacon and egg breakfast. And there's those people, like they're not even paying any corporation tax. I mean, it's just, they're a big battle, but who knows? Does that answer your question? Not really.
Well, I think it does in the sense that you had the expectation that this would actually sort of kind of poll the people to say,
down with the gas companies, yes.
Any further questions? Again, thank you, Ms. Tapp. You've been here, this is your third occasion presenting to the inquiry. You've taken the time and effort to engage with the inquiry, and the inquiry certainly appreciates that. Thank you.
Thank you.